Like anything else in life, there's a right and a wrong time to get things done. There's a good and then there's a better time to get things done. Khaled here with the Plant Charmer channel. Today I'm showing you the right moment to take care of your weeds, how to take care of them so you stay in control and get a great garden. Alright, so this is the garlic patch that I have in the front of the house. You guys who follow me on Instagram have probably seen this quite a bit. Every year we plant garlic in here, and it's doing pretty good. As you can see, there's a little bit of yellowing going on, and that is because they're nitrogen deficient. So during this video, I'll also show you guys how to incorporate the fertilizer at the same time you weed and make it a one-step operation, basically. So if we actually look through, you see mainly the garlic. But if you actually look a little closer, you see these small weeds that are starting to emerge everywhere. So let's just go down the row a little bit. And all these weeds are pretty much at the same stage. Now, I've actually weeded this. Well, I've cultivated the soil a couple of weeks back. But what happens at this time of year is you've got fertilizer, you've got heat, you've got water, and you've got plenty of light. So weeds come up very, very, very quickly in the spring. So as you can see, we've got quite a bit everywhere. And so in today's video, I'm going to show you guys, one, how to take care of these, two, a bit more information on why you should do it now and at this stage. And I'll also show you how to incorporate fertilizer into your soil at the same time so that you don't have to make it a separate operation. All right, so before we get started on the weeding part, we're going to want to put in some fertilizer. The reason why we want to put it in is we're actually going to cultivate that soil, and the cultivation of the soil is actually going to incorporate the fertilizer pellets at the same time, saving us the extra step of having to come back another day, putting our pellets in, and then cultivating the soil, even though there is no weeds. So that's what we're going to do right now. So I'm going to grab this, which is my 532 chicken manure fertilizer. The reason we're using 532 at this stage is because the plants are actually still building up. So we're not bulbing at this point. We're not getting a bulb that is forming down under. I'm not going to uproot any of this to show you guys, but trust me on that. The plants at this stage want to grow foliage. They want to grow photosynthetic capacity. So we're going to help them do that by giving them nitrogen. Nitrogen is the one element that actually produces leaves and branches and canopy. So we're going to give them that. Later on in the season, we're going to switch the fertilizer profile to something that contains a bit more phosphorus and potassium. So you just grab your pellets and you want to make a little line, but just where your plants are. So just at the base of the plants. So that this way, once our nitrogen actually melts out, or whatever you want to call that, just becomes available, it's going to go directly into the root zone. So, but we're going to work all of this fertilizer in anyway, so it's not going to stay exactly the same place. We're just making sure that some of the nitrogen ends up where we want it to. If you want to save a bit on fertilizer, instead of making a line, you could just put a little bit at the base of each plant like this. And that should do the trick. So I'm going to finish this up and I'm going to come back to the video and show you guys how we actually work it into the ground. All right, so the first tool we're going to use for this this little job here is this old rake. You guys have seen me use that before. I wasn't lying when I was saying I use it a lot. It's very, very useful despite being in very bad shape. So you may or may not see on the camera, but I showed you guys before, we've put some fertilizer at the base of each plant. Now what we want to do is the long lines, so the length of the bed first. So we're gonna grab this and just go. So my tines go at the base of the plant and I'm just going like this. There you go, pulling about a foot or so and then resetting and going back in. This prevents clumping. This makes it easier for you to weed because you don't have roots getting stuck in the tines or anything like that. All right, so we've done a pretty good job on this one. I'm going to do the rest of the bed and then I'll show you guys how to weed between the plants and in the other direction as well. Right, so as you guys can see in the video, we've actually weeded or cultivated the length of the bed using our rake here. You can see it's actually darker there because we've brought moisture up, or actually more soil up to the surface. But that doesn't solve our problem of having to weed in the other direction. So in most farms, or most farming contexts, the big problem in weeding, since it's done by machinery and mechanical means, is always the in-between plants. So I don't have the answer for farmers on commercial operations, but if you're doing a small garden at home or growing a couple of grow beds, if you actually did leave some distance between your plants, which you should do anyway, you'll be able to do what I've introduced that concept last year in one of my videos. I call that tic-tac-toe weeding. So we actually went like this, and now because we've got enough space between our plants, we can actually go like this. So I just got to grab my rake and just go cultivate in the other direction. See? Tick, tack, and toe. So very simple concept, but it's super useful because you can actually go really quickly doing this stuff. So I could do the entire bed in probably 2 minutes, and it's a pretty large bed. I've got about 200 or so garlic plants in here. And so if you look at the beginning of that segment of the video, the way it looked with all these weeds that were in between the plants, as opposed to now, you can see it's actually much, much cleaner. So doing these two methods, we were about to achieve, able to achieve close to 95 to 97% weeding efficiency. So we've got about 5% of the weeds that are left. Now, these might be weeds and you might see them on the surface, but they were just freshly uprooted, so they're still green. One of the tricks you need to use when you're weeding is wait until the top layer of the soil is dry and then cultivate the way I just did, and do not water. Very, very important stuff. Now we've just put fertilizer in. Like I said, there's light, there's enough heat, all the conditions are reunited for weeds to grow. So if you water, what you've just done is you've actually cultivated the competition out, you've actually given them fertilizer, and now you're going to give them water. So these weeds are going to come back 3 times as strong. So do not water. Don't wait until your crops need water to weed, but wait until you're about 2 or 3 days out, which means the top layer, the top 2 inches or so of the soil are completely dry. Whatever you've brought up, you've churned up with that tool, or whatever tools you've used, is also going to dry out. So if I were to come back here in about like 2 or 3 hours, all these weeds would actually be completely faded out, keeled over, and limp. So that's not the case right now. We're not going to come back in 2 or 3 hours. We're going to come back tomorrow. But if you guys try that out, you'll see it's actually a very, very transforming piece of experience. So let's just go ahead and complete the bed here. All right, so our tic-tac-toe weeding is actually done. Great stuff. We did not have to bend over a single time to achieve this. All that was done with the rake I showed you before. Let's take a closer look and see what we actually achieved. So if you guys remember at the beginning of this video, there was quite a few weeds. Now I know some of you guys are going to tell me I still see weeds here, but the majority of what you see is actually uprooted weeds, such as this guy right here. So here we go, camera focus. And we've got all kinds of uprooted weeds. So this is what happens when you actually attack the weed problem while the weeds are very, very small. Now, pulling them out by hand is very labor intensive. So this method I just gave you guys, which I call tic-tac-toe weeding, does 95+% of the weeding for and you don't have to worry about weeding much more than this. So you've got a couple of small weeds. See, one of them was uprooted, the one next to it was not. There are a few spots, I'm trying to locate one right now, where the weeds were so close to the plants that we weren't able to get close enough. So I think that would be a good example. At this stage, whatever is left, you can either hand weed, or you can use, what I use here is a handheld wire weeder. So you can just grab this and then go around and, you know, just do the little finishing touches. That's if you're a little OCD. So and again, you don't have to pick up those weeds here, and if you don't trust my advice, just give it a shot and then come back in 2 or 3 hours and see how these guys are on their way out. So all over the bed, this is what we have. Uprooted weeds everywhere, and that's it. So if I were to come back a little later, this bed would look great. Now we're just gonna wait at least 24 hours before we water this, just so that the drying effect that us churning the soil has had is gonna finish off whatever weeds were still there. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, my name is Khaled, known as the Plant Charmer. I show you how to grow great gardens so you can grow your own food, have fun, and I also share experience coming from a commercial perspective. So I'll see you next time. Keep it green and keep that garden going.